You ever see Casablanca? You ever see that, Bruce? You ever see that movie, Casablanca?
I did not.
Okay. You need to see Casablanca. I know you haven't, right?
Definitely not.
Do you seen Casablanca?
Of course, Rich.
TJ, have you ever seen Casablanca?
You know, bits and pieces, all the most memorable parts
Well,
of it.
you know, there's a famous scene in Casablanca where the police chief is shocked that there's gambling going on in Casablanca as he's taken, some sort of...
I feel like I've seen this in Caddyshack with Bushwood.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. Keep it fair. Keep it fair.
For Brockman and
It's a famous line, like the cop that knows that there's gambling going on is shocked that there's gambling going on in Casablanca. That's how I felt reading your piece, that every single coach that coached against Michigan thinks Alabama's going to win.
Could you have just used the Bushwood example with Judge Smales and not made me feel...
No.
Brockman feel like we're so uneducated and so...
Excuse me, that's your problem. Okay, Bruce? Like, I don't know how you haven't seen Casablanca.
Let's see. When was that released?
Oh, my God.
Good reference.
Okay, so while he's
Googling up one of the most famous films
1942.
of all
nice
time.
Timely reference.
Go see it. That means you're over 2. Yes, sir.
All right, so the Michigan thing is fascinating to see the reaction. So I worked on 4 different stories that are all running this week at The Athletic. Day 1 was Michigan, day 2 Alabama, day 3, which is today, is Texas, day 4 tomorrow is Washington.
Okay.
Talked to all these coaches who played them. Not all are the coaches from the conference. Most are, but there's a handful that I talked to who are maybe played them in the non-conference. The Michigan one, as it turned out, was the most where when I talked to these guys, and it didn't hit me right away. It actually hit me as towards the end of, I was working on this. It was like, man, the way these guys are talking about it, it's like Michigan's like a 10-point underdog. And they're actually, at the time, was like a 2-point favorite, they're a 1-point favorite now. But I think there's a couple of things that are at play here. And I'm glad we're talking about this because, I got so much blowback from Michigan fans who are already, kind of at wit's end because of what's gone on. Never mind you. Yeah. Let's talk about the bulk of the Michigan fans.
Yes, sir.
Because of all the stuff that has gone on with the Connor Stallions story and how it's been reported and maybe the side comments and everything else, right? And also, the Big Ten's punishment. One thing that I think happened towards this is, okay, they went 3-0 without Jim Harbaugh, and that was the toughest games. Beat Penn State at Penn State, beat Maryland, trap game-ish, and then obviously beat their arch rival again. I think the schedule, and then they play a really good defense, not a good offense, but a really good defense. Number one, defense basically they're going to see in Iowa in the Big Ten title game. So the schedule is super backloaded, right? And I think with the biggest question marks that coaches have is with J.J. McCarthy and the offense. Because it was like, hey, he looks so good in the beginning of the year, and then I'm watching him now, and they're not explosive at all.
Well, they handed it off 20-some-odd straight times against Penn State to win that game.
They did. Now, also, though, he got a lot of pressure in the first couple series of the game. The right tackle couldn't block. And look, Penn State has super twitchy edge rushers, Chop Robinson being one. He's going to be a problem for anybody.
And I'm sure Alabama does, too.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas Turner is of that ilk. He might not be quite what Chop Robinson is, but he's close. And I think... So the word is, J.J. McCarthy was banged up. And now, will he be 100% after a month away from, the end of the season to now? Could be a different guy. He's really athletic when he's healthy. So there's that.
Yeah, I saw the quote. Like, what, he's got to play the game of his life in order to be at Alabama, right? To win it all. But
maybe.
You wouldn't have to say that about Milroe, too? You know what I mean? Like, that's...
Yeah, maybe.
Not really? Okay. I mean, again, I'm just...
If Milroe plays like he did against LSU, who albeit has a bad defense, but he plays like he did against Georgia, and this is where I'm going with this. Most of the coaches did not see Alabama, I'm talking about the Big Ten coaches, did not see Alabama play Auburn because they were playing that weekend. What they did see was Alabama beat Georgia. So they're sitting there and you're seeing Alabama at their best. Their offensive line looked way better than it did against Texas, against USF, against Auburn. They gave up a lot of yards on the ground defensively. Hugh Freeze gave them a lot of problems with what he does. Georgia, Kirby Smart and Nick Saban come from the same place. I think it's similar to what they practice against every day when they're practicing against themselves, and then how do they attack it. And Nick Saban also knows what gives us problems probably gives them problems, because it's the same defensive family, tree. Whereas, people have watched, no lie. I mean, Michigan was, J.J. McCarthy, I think, threw 1 touchdown pass over the last 5 games.
There's no question his body of work in the early parts of the season and then the last parts of the season are 2 separate pieces of tape. I mean,
so you put that part together with the part where, all this other stuff comes out, right. And you already had some of these coaches feeling like, all right, they're getting an unfair advantage, and now they're looking and going, well, it does make you wonder, did he, with him having the answers to the test,
yes, and
now if he doesn't, is he operating with the same level of confidence?
When you say answers to the test, you're referring to the Connor Stallion stuff?
Where they're referring to know which blitz is coming from where, to know, it's.
Oh, so his lack of production in the last parts of the season is not to the similar part of the season, not similar to the earlier parts of the season, is not because of the scheduling. It's because he had answers to the tests removed.
I think
we're actually seeing the results of Michigan having the sign-stealing, ripped-out root and branch.
Yes, one coach said he thought, okay, there is the schedule is backloaded. There were much better teams,
right?
But also conceded it does make you wonder on that. A lot of other coaches I talked to also felt that was a red flag to them.
So then one last thing, and then we can part ways and do this again very soon. And it's fine if the answer is not the one that clearly I'm digging for. Okay. Did you sense any sense of still resentment or anything, anger, resentment from these folks that would color their remarks to you on this very subject
It's entirely possible. It's a human nature thing. And I saw, look, and I think enough Michigan fans who read me know I picked Michigan to win the national title
don't
back
worry
in
about that sort of nonsense.
But one of the commenters made a point. He was like, this is the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten. And it's like the SEC is kind of on board with its SEC,
yeah,
and the Big Ten kind of eats its own. And look, Nick Saban, he is. They have. I think this person used it, and I don't disagree. There was a lot of reverence for Nick Saban. I mean, this team barely got into the playoff, right? I mean, we talked about this before. It was like, whereas Michigan, I think there is still some leftover hostility with some of the coaches. I don't know I wouldn't say it was with all of the ones I talked to, because some of them haven't been in the league that long, don't have maybe the personal animus, but there's a few I think did. And I think there was also, when they saw it, it was like, okay, they're gettable. Now, again, I think it really has as much to do with if J.J. McCarthy's 100%. Like the guy I saw last year in Columbus, when they beat Ohio State, and to me, it was like they could have gotten blown out of that place, but they were hung around and then they took over in the second half. He did not have Blake Corum. He had Donovan Edwards, who went off, but Donovan Edwards was hobbled in the game because he was playing with like a soft cast.
Right.
And so they were not 100%, and he hit some big plays. Like I still think he needs to be at his best to beat Alabama.
I think you could say that about every quarterback against every team in this college football playoff. But I understand what you're saying. I get it. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.